Sacha, Timeless Traveler, here for Ultness at Space City Con, and with Jon Hughes, the founder and CEO of Overground Comics. Your world is so unique. What can readers expect to see from the characters and the stories?
What we decided to do with Overground Comics is, this is something I'm kind of passionate about. We love the people who came before us in this business, the companies like Marvel Comics, DC, Dark Horse, and we understand that companies like us need them to carry this business so that we can exist. The comic book universes that are very popular have become very stagnant because they made a choice a while back to not really move time forward in order to preserve the popularity of the characters that they have. And we don't really have to do that because when we start our books, we have no popular characters. We have nothing anybody's ever heard of before. And so we can do things differently. And so what we're going to do is, from the first day that we publish, the day that we publish is the day that it is today. And time will move forward beyond that. In our first run of books that we just released this weekend, Graduate, Plus Ultra, and Absent Captain, the day that we put them on the table, Friday, August 2nd, it was Friday, August 2nd in those books. And as each day progresses in your world, like that's kind of why we say on the banner up there, changing the industry one day at a time. What we mean by that is that every day that passes for you, it passes for us. And we hope that that's going to give people something to relate to because we want them to be like you. And the thing is with comic books nowadays, it's like when you pick up a book, let's say you enjoy like Spider-Man. Everybody loves Spider-Man. He's like the most amazing superhero ever created. But when you're 18, it's awesome because he's like you. And then once you're like 30, it's like he's still like you when you were 18. When you're 40, he's still like you when you were 18. And it never changes, and so you don't relate to him anymore, but you always remember that you used to. And it creates this weird relationship where you still love the character, but you just don't identify with them anymore. And we don't want it to be like that. We want the gradual changes. We want people to grow together, and we want it to be dynamic so that as you grow, they grow too.
Will many of your heroes have the consequences of their choices and their legacy portrayed throughout their world and reverberated around the hero community?
Yeah, since we're going to operate the way that we do, we don't have to trick anybody. Every single time a character dies in, say, like Marvel or DC Comics, what happens? There's a big ad campaign. There's like posters, oh, somebody's gonna bite the dust, And so like they're using the death of a character to sell you a book, which to me is insane because what that does is that's proving that they're only promoting the collectability of it. Because why would you be happy about buying a book where the thing you love dies? They're like, you love the Human Torch? We're killing him. Don't you want to buy it? And you're like, no, I don't want it to happen, right? So what we're going to do is we're not going to operate that way. We're going to, if a character is going to have to, pass on in a book, it'll only be if it makes sense, and it'll be if we put them in a situation that has to move the story forward, and we can't spare them. Like it would just be absurd for somebody to live through this. Then we're going to let it happen, but we're not going to tell people it's going to happen. We're just going to let it happen. And so when you talk about consequences, like our focus on that is we want to be held accountable for what we do as creators, and then the characters will follow us. Because it's the lack of accountability from the creators in the industry today that leads to the lack of accountability with the characters. And that's just something the reader doesn't think about, but we do. And so what we want is, if you're following one of our books and you're enjoying it and you're reading it for a while, and one day, page after page, you're reading through and out of nowhere somebody dies, we want you to get sick. We want this pit in your stomach, and we want you to send us hate mail for a week. Like, how could you do that to us? Because we want you to understand that they're not coming back. And this is just what happens in the world, and you're gonna have to let go. And we know that's gonna be hard for people at first, but we believe that that will eventually affirm to people that the story matters more because you know that we mean it. And we're not going to erase 5 years of what you read in order to make more money off of you because we're going to trick you into buying our books. We're going to make it matter when somebody dies. They're not going to come back. They're not going to be reincarnated or come back in time or anything ridiculous like that. They're just going to go. And that's what we'll do. We'll just keep making sure that we develop good content and good characters and good stories so that when we take something away from you, it's only because we're going to give you something else and we're going to let it move forward. And so it'll still mean something to you, but you'll also still have something to come back to.
I've noticed that many of your characters are based in or around Houston. How important is it that you have such a strong Texas base or Houston base?
We are the fourth largest city in the country, and we don't have a major comic book presence in the industry. And that's just honesty. That's not me trying to insult people who are trying to make comics here. But nationally, when you go to comic books across the country, you don't see stuff from Houston, Texas there. There's no movies about comic book characters that take place in Houston, Texas. We have like one book, Scarlet Spider, that takes place in Houston. I read this really neat commentary once when I was learning how to write comics, where they were talking about how boring so many things are in comic book writing because people just are so ingrained with what they've seen. And they said how hilarious it is that in today's comic book industry, if you pick up a comic book that's new and current on the shelves, that's supposed to be happening today, and there's a scene where a character is standing in a store window watching news broadcasts on a bunch of TVs, it's like, where does that still happen? That's from like 20 years ago. But some people who don't have that foresight are still writing it into books because they read it growing up. And so I don't want to tell stories about the fake New York that I read about in comics growing up because I don't know much about it. I want to tell stories where I'm from because I know it, and even if it's not the most entertaining or appealing thing to everybody, it's real.
So you have one location in your comics called Summit. Can you tell us the origin of that?
Without trying to give any spoilers, there's going to be sort of a catastrophe in our book Absent Captain. And what we decided was we don't want to create a catastrophe in Houston, Texas. Like, we don't want to be like, hey, we love Houston. Sorry, we exploded it. And that would not be good. And so what we did was we created a fictional city called Summit City. It's for people who have lived in this city and have been adults in the city for more than 15 years or so. They remember that our big arena where the Rockets used to play was called the Summit. And that ended up becoming another arena, and it's Lakewood Church. But it was a big part of the history of the city, and so that's why we called this city Summit City, so that true Houstonians will know. Because like we do stuff like in our book Overground Comics Presents, where in the first issue we introduced Plus Ultra. The very first line in the book is downtown Houston, and that's important to us. But we want to be able to do dramatic things without somebody being like, man, in that book you kind of blew up my apartment. Yeah, it's not necessarily an inside joke, but it's just a little sentimental thank you, and we're representing us and you at the same time kind of situation. So I hope everybody appreciates it and gets it.
What inspired you to get involved in comics in the first place?
The thing about it is I have been working on this for 20 years. Since I was in high school, I've been working on this, and this is all I've ever wanted to do. I'm doing this because I believe that it is the best thing that I can do. People ask me if, why didn't I try to go draw covers for Marvel or something? Because my work has progressed to the point where it would be easy for me to draw something for them and them to take it. It wouldn't make me the best in the business, but I'd be serviceable. And, for a lot of people who wanted to be a comic book artist or be involved in the industry, that's like a dream come true for them. But that's not my dream come true. My dream come true is my first cover being the book that I wrote with the character I created. And that's what means the most to me.
Where will people be able to find your books?
So we're going to kind of take it slow. And we're not going to push our books for distribution until we get, at least 3 done a piece. And so for the beginning, for the people who know who we are and who follow us, we're going to make them available on the website, and we're going to try to get local comic book shops to let us come out and present. And then early 2014, we're going to try to push for national distribution and be everywhere. But for now, people can just go on the Facebook page which is the best thing to do because it's so easy for us to keep track of that one. The website's a lot more complicated. So if people buy off the Facebook page, that's great. We'll have a store up by Monday morning for people to buy the books.
Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you. I don't know if it's weird. But